Man, how TF people like math? Because it's the only thing in school that you can do without researching. Once you got the methods down, you can solve problems using nothing but your mind. You can't exactly work out what the capital of Egypt is without looking it up or just knowing. Edit. I am aware that you do need to know things to do math. All I'm saying is that you can work out most of math based on that knowledge. Compare it to geography, for example. It's pure memorization. The thing with maths that's awkward is that with how it is typically taught, almost all of it, up to about second year uni level, is learning tools, formulae, machinery, and tricks. When it gets genuinely interesting is when you have those tools down pat, and start getting to the point where maths requires intuitive leaps rather than just applying memorized formulae. You don't actually need all of the machinery to start the more interesting parts of maths. One example that requires very little machinery to try is attempting to solve the Rubik's Cube, without outside help. All about mathematical intuition. A huge part of it is getting the right instructor. If you're asking this after a high school class, yeah, join the club. High school maths teachers are universally garbage, and a lot of that is the fault of the inflexible curriculum they have to follow, but still. I had the same experience. I took pre-algebra like 3 times and failed regular algebra twice. Then I just left high school and got my GED because fuck public education so hard. Absolute waste of fucking time. In university, however, I had a revelation when I got lucky and drew the kindest, most patient, and eager maths professor in history. He walked the class through 20 different ways to solve each equation. I know that sound horrid, but what it did was show that math isn't this rote A, B, C thing you have to memorize. There's lots of different ways to see that work, and you should use the one that clicks with how your brain works. That guy taught me 3 years of high school and entry-level college maths in one semester. At 40 it's still with me. Now, do I like math? Yeah. In so much as I like brushing my teeth, I suppose is the best answer. But like scrubbing those pearly whites so I don't walk around with a bad case of zombie gob, it's not so horrible that I won't do it, and I'm pretty good at it for someone who didn't specialize in a maths-heavy field. That is the difference between a good teacher and the garbage public education vomits all over you on a daily basis. I strongly urge you to try and remove the I hate math programming in your brain, and replace it with a I had garbage maths teachers programming. It will make going forward much easier. Edit. And lest any young folks read this and try to use it as an excuse to give up on school, I would remind you, I didn't just quit. I made my education my own responsibility since society failed at the job. Don't think you can just walk away and play Xbox all day and be okay. This only works for self-motivated people who adhere to a high degree of intellectual honesty. Failing that, at best you'll end up stupid, at worst you may end up horribly propagandized. An imperfect public school education is still vastly superior to none. It's just not in some of us to settle for less. Is that you? Really? Be certain before you make rash decisions. Math though is a perfect example of not all students learning the same way. Something like English is hard to make this point, because the grading is subjective. Different teachers will grade an essay differently. With school math, 2 plus 2 equals 4, and you either get it right, or get it wrong. The problem comes in that the school system tends to act as if all students learn exactly the same way. Doing so though, some students are going to excel while others will fail. And every couple decades or so, how you're supposed to teach changes. What I mean is that, I did great at math when I was in school, but how they teach it today, I'd struggle. And the system would act as if I just was not good at math, rather than realizing that perhaps there are different ways people need to be taught. I just happened to benefit from going to school when I did. At least for algebra and basic high school math. Once you figure out the formula and how to solve a certain type of problem, it's just plug and play for the whole test. As opposed to English, where one time the entire essay was circled, and in the top corner in all caps syntax. Sometimes there wouldn't even be any reasons, just be, or whatever. It just seemed so arbitrary and random. Also, Two Roads Diverged in Yellow Wood by Robert Frost is not that great of a poem. I don't think we should be spending more words talking about a poem than words in the poem. Let's move on. Advanced math is close to philosophy. In fact, it is a subdiscipline of philosophy. Advanced math combines puzzle solving with elegant reasoning and beautiful proofs. If you have ever built something that you think is beautiful, that's what mathematicians do. Computer science is applied math. Computers are based on discrete mathematics. If you think creating games or other apps might be cool, it's all math, although most programmers don't need to focus on the mathematical basis much. Do you think computer graphics, animation, computer-rendered movies are cool? Yup, it's all math. In particular, it's linear algebra. Ada Lovelace was the first computer programmer, and she had to do it all with a theoretical computer that did not exist yet. All she had was a mathematic model of a computer. I'm kind of with you on this subject in general, especially considering my math skills are average at best. However, in recent history I really enjoyed listening to podcasts and reading material about a pretty closely related subject. Geometry. Not trying to hijack this post, I figured it was close enough, lol. There have been a few people on Joe Rogan Go Back discussing what I would refer to as theoretical geometry. Things such as geometrical shapes that are known to exist but exist in multiple dimensions, and the way they're described almost seem to take on some magical quality. This definitely stems into the category of sacred geometry. It really seems that there is just so much that we do not know about the world that surrounds us, and subjects like these can actually make both math and geometry pretty intriguing. You realize that it literally helps to break down and understand everything about the world around you. I think people like math up to a certain level. I enjoyed learning math as long as I was able to visualize the relationships it was describing. Geometry was a breeze, and I learned a lot of basic formal logic as a bonus. Trig I could handle most of the time, because there were graphs and shapes that I could imagine. Once I got to about calculus, I started losing my grip on it. The shapes got too complex and it became psychedelic. So when I'm talking to a 12-year-old kid, I tell them that math is fun and I like it. When I talk to people with math degrees, I tell them that math is gibberish and I hate it. Different people get to different levels of math before they hit that wall and decide that it's bullshit. Some folks can't get past fractions, some folks get stumped in college, and some weirdos go all the way out to the frontier and work on ideas that nobody's figured out yet. My maths GCSE was one of my favorite subjects because I had a great teacher. Then in a level, I hated one of my teachers with a passion, not the mechanics teacher. He was dope and used to work as a cage fighter for the WWE, but that one pure maths teacher was so serious. He was the most stereotypical maths teacher you've ever met. He only cared about numbers and statistics, and forced so much work on me. I had my first ever mental health breakdown in one of his lessons. He is the reason I now hate maths. Some shapes are just beautiful. Look at these brilliant polar equations. https://math.stackexchange.com/808650/in-equation- that generates -a beautiful -or unique shape for motivating students -I. Also look at r/sacred geometry, where you use geometry as a foundation to achieve higher dimensions of spiritual well-being. Edit. I love geometry. Because shapes are everywhere and they make up everything. Algebra and calculus are human constructs to describe geometry. Also algebra, calculus, and even basic arithmetic could be annoying. I keep on reminding myself that I have to bear through it to better understand the construction behind complex geometric figures. Now statistics is just boring. I don't like it. I treat it as a necessary task I need to complete my job, and I have no interest in it. If you have a use for it, it becomes very intuitive. You stop seeing the numbers and equations as arbitrary things on a page, and as tools to help solve your problem. Just like when you see a nail you think, I need a hammer. Knowing how math fits into your usable domain will form similar connections. I sucked ass at math through most of school. I started learning programming around junior year of high school, and suddenly algebra, trigonometry, and linear algebra, vectors and matrices, became as physical and pliable as if I was cutting and nailing pieces of wood together. Liking it, for me, is kind of roundabout. I have an interesting problem I want to solve, i.e., can I make the player do that cool thing? How do I do it? And it then becomes a puzzle. Since it's an open-ended puzzle, I inevitably end up learning loads each time, and then get a cool result at the end. The fact that I have to use math is a non-issue, in the same way someone who enjoys building birdhouses never thinks twice about needing to use a hammer. Gonna put this out there as a mechanical engineer, prefacing with I'm not that good at mathematics, as well as the other hard sciences, is the language the universe speaks in. Through mathematics and proofs, we find ways of understanding, we discover more about the world as we know it. We get fun philosophical questions like, is mathematics created or discovered? We get cool things like e caret I asterisk pi plus 1 equals 0, which is beautiful and mysterious, how three completely unrelated complex numbers come together to be equal to 1. We get crazy things like the Fourier series, i.e. any continuous curve can be modeled by some sin function. We get physics, we get modeling, we get all sorts of engineering, we get rockets and planes and trains and electronics. Mathematics is synonymous with beauty. How do people come to dislike math is a much better question. And they come to dislike math because they are never taught what math is, they are taught how to solve simplistic math problems. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, decimals, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, linear algebra, differential equations, chaos theory. This is the path we follow in the West, and it's kinda silly and sad. It follows as naturally as we can make it follow, but we try and push it like forcing sludge down a tube, rather than thinning it out and allowing it to come at its own pace. Mathematics is synonymous with beauty. How do people come to dislike math is a much better question. And they come to dislike math because they are never taught what math is, they are taught how to solve simple math problems. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, decimals, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, linear algebra, differential equations, chaos theory. This is the path we follow in the West, and it's kinda silly and sad. It follows as naturally as we can make it follow, but we try and push it like forcing sludge down a tube, rather than thinning it out and allowing it to come at its own pace. And at very few points in this slog of mathematics are they shown why it matters, what is happening, how it is the coolest thing that the average person gets to have a mathematical education that would make a Greek civil engineer blush, using machines that allow us to run complex calculations at the drop of a hat. TI calculators, the biggest racket in the history of rackets. https://i.red.it/f0g3rlp0bet51.png. I think the reason lots of people hate it is because they focus on memorizing it instead of understanding. That makes math really hard. Also, sometimes people don't understand an important topic that is the prerequisite for something else, so then they struggle a lot, and the same happens again, and it just gets worse. I think this is partially the teachers, or education system, fault for not teaching kids to learn math the right way. It's easier for a teacher to tell students to memorize some random formula than to explain them the logic behind it. I like math, and the reason I like it is because I always approached it the right way, focused on understanding, not memorizing. I'm pretty sure that everyone who is good at math would agree with me on this. Smiley face. This made math easy, mostly, and fun for me. Solving a challenging math problem feels like solving a puzzle to me. Also, math is useful and shows up everywhere. Even if you are not in a field that requires math, knowing math can help you see things in a more analytical way, which helps in a lot of random scenarios. It is so useful in everyday life. I use it when I'm cooking, drawing, sewing. It just helps me out creatively. I love how everything is just so involved in it. And it makes so much sense. Like it's like a mystery story where there are no plot holes. I used to not like it cause in the context of school I hated. When I started learning about independently, I really enjoyed it. I have no clue, I personally hated being graded on math. It made math totally unenjoyable for me since it was hard for me to grasp early on. I wish I liked and was better at it, but now I avoid it if I can. It makes me feel stupid still to this day, and that hurts, guys. Sad face. The fun part of math is the moment you realize you can do better than others, which makes you superior, and rub it in their faces that you're smarter than them.